All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Oops. All right. So welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining one of our events, I'm Sarah Powell. I'm the founder of Impactury, and we offer eco-luxury wellness retreats to women executives who are seeking more purpose and less stress. And we also host virtual events like this where we bring really life-changing insights to you for free, thanks to incredible coaching partners like Nadine is going to be doing today. But before we jump into the event, like always, I just want to take a minute to get present. So you can close your eyes if you want for this, and just take a deep breath in, and then breathing out, letting go of whatever was going on for you before this session, not worrying about whatever is happening after, just being here in this moment together. Okay, you can go ahead and open your eyes. So thank you so much for joining us today and investing an hour of your time into learning about navigating change and leading in a patriarchal society, how our masculine and feminine energy shows up differently in corporate, and also hearing Nadine's incredibly inspiring story. So this will be our agenda for today. So we'll go through that, and Nadine's going to give examples through her own story of how masculine and feminine energy has showed up differently for her, and how she was able to find balance and really her journey to more wholehearted living. And then at the very end, if this is something that you are interested in exploring further, we're going to share an incredible opportunity to do that in June in Mallorca with us. So I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself related to the topic. So like I mentioned, I am the founder of Impactury, but before Impactury, I was a consultant for Accenture. I used to be a chief operating officer of a digital consultancy. I'm also a co-founder of a clean water social enterprise in Ethiopia. I am a very high achieving, motivated person, which is great. And I love that about myself. But for most of my life, I was so heavily in the kind of doing, the more masculine, that I ended up actually pushing myself to a point of exhaustion where I ended up having a health crisis and I wasn't even able to work. This for me was just one of the most difficult points in my life, but through a combination of finding meditation, therapy, I really discovered a new way of being where I don't feel like my accomplishments are equal to my self-worth. Now I do less, and I really stay connected to my body. I also listen and trust my inner voice. This is something that's really taken a lot of time. But yeah, to get here has been a journey and it still continues. But this way of living more in alignment with my values has really led me to do work and be surrounded by people who share these values, like Nadine. So Nadine is a coach, and I won't give too much of her story since she'll be going into this, but in a past life, she was working in corporate doing marketing and sales strategy for big companies like Loreal, Johnson & Johnson, Estee Lauder. But about 15 years ago, she got into coaching, which is something that she's really passionate about, and creating safe spaces where people can feel comfortable being vulnerable and really connecting with their values and creating more positive impact in their own lives, but also in their communities, the companies they work in as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Nadine, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for this opportunity to share my journey with like-minded, like-hearted souls and leaders. So thank you also for this space to share our voice with with Impactury community. I do hope that with that time, with this almost an hour, that would bring you a feeling of not being alone on this journey and offering you a space to breathe, reflect, get inspired, and potentially spark your interest in diving deeper on your transformational journey. I'll be sharing my journey with you following Maureen Murdoch, female journey, a cycle of 8 stages. She's a psychotherapist, writer, student of a very well-known American anthropologist called Joseph Campbell. He's well known for the book of The Hero of 1,000 Faces, if you wish to look into it later on. Before I start, as Sarah mentioned, we're addressing kind of the topic where we're saying feminine and masculine. First, I just want to pause and ask you, you could write in the chat or on mute, what is it for you? What is the masculine and feminine trait for you? So if you like, you can unmute or write in the chat. What are the feminine values that we understand? There is no right or wrong here. So it could be a behavior, it could be an attribute.
Hi, Nadine.
Hi.
Thank you for having this. Great. And I think that feminine would be more nurturing.
Sorry, your microphone is not really. I can't hear you well. Can you get closer to your? I think I have earphones, so if you can get closer to.
Is this better?
A bit, but I think you're moving the microphone. So if you stay still, can you say it again?
Yeah. So I think for feminine, nurturing, compassion, kindness, although that could be across the board. Kindness could be both, feminine and masculine. But more to do with leading from the heart. And, and masculine would be more to do with, just doing, getting out there, being a go-getter, ambition, in my opinion. So
beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. What I heard from the feminine side. Yes, I see also joining you, Jen and Gabriella, on it's more about compassion. It's about listening, as the feminine trait, while masculine, not men. Masculine would be more around doing, achieving, being rational. I mean, the list goes on. And here, in 1 hour, we're not going to dwell into what is, but at least just to have a feel. Like when we talk about feminines not being women and men as a gender, but I could have both, right? And to a certain percentage. So feminine could be around intuition, like you mentioned, compassion and so on, while masculine is more the rational, goal-oriented, go-getter, as you mentioned. Thank you for that. And of course, yes, it could be a social contract, and there's debate how much is biological. But it's important to just keep in mind this nuance as I dive into the journey. Great. So if we go into when I mentioned that I'm going to share with you the Maureen Murdoch feminine journey, what I like about it makes it quite interesting because it's describing the feminine experience going through, also from a woman perspective, leading her life, but also I am sure men would relate to it too. So it's a journey. What is nice about it is a journey from outside to inside. When we're in the doing, we're more on the outside versus when we're in the being, we go internally and connect and start from there. So to visualize it more, I'm going to share my journey with you. And as you see the slide of the journey, I'm sure you'll get, so if we can move slide, thank you, Kate. So it starts, if you want, for me, when I left university and I was so eager to learn, discover the world, do things, grow in career. And my aim was to go international. Like my father and uncles, they used to travel and come back with amazing, fascinating stories, trips and work and achievement and culture. Back then, it wasn't that important as today for women to have career or purpose. What I was expected, maybe a steady job, get married in a couple of years with kids, and stay in my comfort social circle with my loving family. And if when you look at the stages, this is the first step, the first stage when I started shifting from my feminine to masculine. What it means here is kind of abandoning the feminine to succeed in the corporate world, kind of getting detached of your true essence. And as I saw this, I thought back then that was what is needed. Like Sarah already mentioned earlier, this is what she felt it was needed to be in the corporate world. So I took even a physical and emotional distance from anything deemed feminine, including how I looked and dressed. I took it to the extreme. Often in this shift, it can be portrait from rejecting, resenting anything that represents the feminine in your society. So I felt I had to prove something to the outer world and specifically to myself. So being kind or soft was okay, but not special, not assertive, not powerful. So I had the feeling that I was not enough. Even volunteering, working in renowned organization was not enough. One market is not enough. So my inner critic was constantly screaming as if I'm competing with myself or my shadow. So I was getting drained, but I kept on going. This stage felt like cutting the umbilical cord and going on a new phase, which took me to what you see here, step 2, is identifying with the masculine that is, and this happens when we are praised for strength and power, and even the feminine side is ridiculed. So here I moved early on my career, as Sarah mentioned, from brand management to regional sales with international brands. And it was a great learning with a lot of highs and lows. So I strived to be the youngest in the role I took, to achieve growth in sales in short time, dove in numbers, which I hated, sales in numbers, but I did it, restructuring teams from 10 to 100 in a year and a half, governance processes and so on in a regional office in Dubai. It required from me to act strong. I didn't feel strong back then, but I had to act and present in front of large groups, achieve good numbers, and facing fierce competition. And this is what it is about in that phase. You have competition, is the masculine trait. There was no space for showing weakness, fatigue, or being emotional for that matter. In that stage, I had clear medium and long-term professional goals in mind, having family at a certain age later on. And the same thing happened later when I established a regional consultancy firm in 2010. I worked with Japanese for a few years. There is no space for emotions. It's all about achieving, doing. And the road, as you see on the step 3, the road is full of trials. I had to spend, for example, hours, and I'm sure few would relate, hours and months convincing CFO of multinational for the basic rights of staff. So yes, I felt strong and proud when I achieved it, when I got sales numbers superb and motivated team, when our events were a successful model globally and showcased. That was great. And you get praised, so your ego goes up, especially acknowledged by others. But in the same time, you start as the feminine leader, right? There's inner conflict happening. As we're achieving, there is a discomfort when it comes to love, dependency, and other feelings internally. The way even a woman, when we talk about, competition, the women, and here I'm going to use women and female, are treated as the weak one, to say the least. So I, as a young woman, I started to shield myself, even hide my body. It went to the outer, feeling shame and started to gain weight. Feeling not worthy of love. in the face, even in these circles, sometimes in the face of sexual harassment, I felt guilty while being the victim. They didn't say anything and showed a strong face again, and people appreciated it. So here you go more about also going alone, which means you don't ask for help, it's weak, and you go more into a lonely space. So gradually I started, and this is stage 4, experiencing what we're calling the illusory boon or help of success, where I'm sure in corporate world, those who work there, the human is put, you may notice sometimes is put aside, profit over purpose, you have ego and politics that comes as first priority. So this is where, even though I was on my way to achieving everything I have set for myself, it came to a great sacrifice for my soul. I grew in my job, but I felt my soul is drying out. I realized I was betraying a certain aspect of my values, like compassion, creativity, flow, intuition. So the soft side, as we call it. My relationship with my inner world was suffering, and there was no time. It was never a priority. It's always pushed back. I like the word in kanji. If you see the picture of it later on, I can share it with you. It feels like I was, kanji, the word happiness, there's prison in the center. So it's like being a prisoner of myself and my body and my limiting beliefs of thinking what is good to be in the corporate world, and where I wasn't expressing my heart. I felt like I was a shadow of myself, lost my sense of purpose too. So this is a time, and I'm bringing it in here. Yes, thank you, Sarah. This is a time, and that was a pivoting time in my life when I met my husband back then, called Alain, who was a free spirit, an entrepreneur, an optimist, leading an energy service company. He was open, humble, and always finding answers in conversation with others. While I came from a corporate world, the masculine side, who you need to know everything, and you don't share, you don't ask, because there's a lot of competition and high judgment. So his presence kind of, and for me, kind of held a mirror of what I'm not, a mirror of my inner and outer preconceived limitations. So at this stage, if you want, this is what you see on the slide here, is the descent. What is called here the descent is the moment where we meet the feminine. The feminine is within us. Huh? Usually this happens, according to Marian Murdoch, is when crisis falls upon us. The masculine trait you have learned fades. It could be through physical, mental health issue, loss of self-identity or crisis. For me, it started like a depression, disappointment, kind of a shock of the real life, doubt of myself. That after so many years, I've kind of created a world and goals, and I don't connect with anymore. And this descent also happens when a big accident happens in your life. In this period, as I mentioned, I met Alain, and I left my job because I felt completely dried. We started to travel to New York, Japan, Singapore, started helping him, but I was still in the mindset of, no, why me? Why this idea? This is not special enough. So still my inner critic was super high. So the big crisis, what happened is so my son is born, Alexis, on the 3rd of June, 2008. The 6th of June was Alain's birthday. And the 24th of June, same year, 3 weeks after Alex is born, my husband died in the Bhutan, what we call today the country of the 1,000 dragons. So that was a moment for me when everything crumbles, as you can imagine. Time froze. That was a big awakening moment for me. Obviously quite painful. It kind of felt like having to fight few dragons, and we slay dragons in order to attain some treasures, usually in ancient time, but here it was like life froze. A piece of me died. So you go through all the emotions, including anger, denial, and so on. But I stopped at a moment whereby he was an optimist, and I wanted to keep this legacy of this light that he was, and he inspired me. I started from that moment of shifting my perspective and perception of life, of saying, why not? Why have I been waiting for trying things? Why have I been waiting to live the present? And this is where it gave me confidence to think and move differently. I took myself in charge, close and open all the new businesses while searching for my spark. So some, they told me it took courage to keep on going. For others, it was like, for me, honestly, it felt like I had no choice. I had a toddler who's depending on me. I couldn't afford not doing it, right? And to be honest, there's a strength that comes from within. So the shadow, and here this was a moment, pivoting time, and that descent, meeting my feminine, as we call, is my shadow that I felt coming from the corporate world had to be in the light. I cannot stay in the passenger seat, depending on my boss or my husband or whatever. I'm in the driver's seat. From being an employee to an entrepreneur, from being a mother and father at the same time. So the roles shifted. I'm not married, I'm not single, I'm a widow with a child, and I hated these tags and still do. So to overcome it and not be boxed, on my journey, it's still a journey, accepting who I am, and these are part of me. So in that descent, there's creativity when we meet the feminine, right? It's not always a straight line. To be honest, even redecorated not only how I pave my future choices, but even my physical space. It helped me inside out to reflect it. So I have been always thirsty of learning and serving. And I dove into it and doing it in a bridging mind and heart in my approach, not in separation. Same for those who like the yin yang. They're not in duality. Yes, we say the yin is about destruction and the masculine, and the yang is about building and the feminine. They don't work alone. Together, we become whole. So at this stage, meeting the feminine, reconciling gradually with it, it's super important. I love the poet Rumi, who says, there's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen to it. And for me, the moments that I did that was magical. That was, for example, a moment where I met at a certain point in the beginning of that journey, an institution around leadership and mentoring. And I felt completely aligned with the values and mission, where we're not alone. We're creating space for people to think, be supported, and kind of be intentional about it. And this, from that moment, for like the past 10, 12 years, this has blessed me in a way to meet exceptional people across Europe, MENA, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Europe. So facilitating retreats, leadership, and mentoring programs. And in that descent, you can see it maybe if you had a U, it's like a drop. It could be quite dark and difficult, but it could be transformational. And what helps in that moment, and not to be alone, to be supported, usually have a coach or a mentor or a friend who's kind of a partner to guide you, reflect, be there, so that you keep on going. Moving on from that descent is what we call the next. So we're starting to reconnect with the feminine, we're starting to yearn for the connection. And here, what Murdoch says about, the heroine wants to reconnect with her feminine side, kind of rebond. And one of the figures of it is reconnecting with your mother. That's one way, or to your feminine side, or the feminine role model in you or around you. For me at that stage, there was a dynamic reconnection with my own mom. Because when I left, unconsciously, I was trying to live what she would have liked for me. And even we had kind of a tension when I broke up an engagement, and it felt like seen like a failure, for a single mom with a child. Why do you disengage? But honestly, the magic here was the reconciliation of having through a series of conversation together. Sometimes it's tense, sometimes there was differences, but then gradually accepting our differences and connecting to each other. And this, I feel today, till now, I mean, the conversation today is like completely different. Which takes you to the next, which is when we talk about after having connected what we call the feminine power, this energy is kind of, you yearn, it flows better. This is what you've been calling for. It's like a stone when you start to polish it. Which takes you to the 7th step, which when we say about reconciliation with the masculine. So yes, we're connected to the feminine, but it's not like considering, the masculine is bad, or the yin and yang in duality, the masculine is bad, the feminine is good, and vice versa. It's about seeing where the masculine has served me, recognizing the positive and the negative to it. In that phase, we identify with part of ourselves. And there are parts where I mentioned, and Sarah earlier mentioned, like we forget about our health, our feelings, refusing to accept our limitation. We're human. One of the key things of the masculine is you need to be perfect at every single moment. It's impossible. We're humans. So the idea here is to acknowledge the limitation of the masculine, but in the same time, being aware of the positive aspect of it. How did it serve you? How can the masculine serve the feminine for us to become and be happy or to be fulfilled? For me, it was about, for example, saying no to what doesn't serve me. Could be relationships, could be work, jobs. Usually I would say yes, no problem. Or please the others and say yes, right? Versus creating healthy boundary. And to be honest, it's still a work in progress. Saying no and saying yes, but the more being assertive about it, and with compassion. I cannot but do it this way. But it helped me then to channel all my energy in towards the vision, the passion, things that I like, and bring the masculine when it comes to structure, rational, practical, but all kind of channels towards wholeness. So one of the things is following my intuition. For example, one of the things lately, and this is opportunity, the chance, thanks to that I met, for example, Sarah is moving to Madrid, wanting something new, not running away, but having a fresh start with my son, where I can continue exploring my true colors with different ways, with different people, and where I kind of healed from the past, and at the same time starting something new, practicing new things, being exposed to new things. And how I'm doing it, sometimes I go to art classes and meditation, for example, or music. My son is teaching me piano, not always, but from time to time. So for me, that helps me to practice again. It's like a muscle to practice again the feminine that was sleeping earlier on. This is from one side. And you can go creative writing. And from the other side, I still like to play chess with him. And so these are from the rational. So kind of finding the balance for each one of us is quite unique of what do I want to develop in my feminine and masculine. And it's a game. So it's a dance. It's not always simple, which gets us to when we talk about the last step, the union. And I'm saying now last, but it's not the last. The union is when they unite, when the heroine, the leader, reunites between both sides of our nature, of your nature, the feminine and masculine. It's a thin line, it's like a dance, a balance between both. It's an art, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We need to be, of course, patient in bringing them both. For me, on this journey to union, again, I say it's a journey for a better, aspiring for a better future. It's important, the alignment identifying what are my values and at least where I want to head. Sometimes purpose and vision could be a blur in the beginning, but the more we talk about it, the more we work intentionally, write it, explore it, think of it, the clearer it is. And that moment, the universe conspires to serve us. In that moment, we find more people can easily support our vision or co-create it together. And here, it's important to acknowledge and notice what stops us getting there is not the outer world. What stops us is our own longing sometimes for approval and recognition from the outside still. Sometimes it's about what interferes is our own vision and our desire to exercise power over people. And usually we want it because we're missing something. When we want to exercise power, say, I know better, or I'm stronger. Another reason why we don't get there is we want safety. So when we want to get into union between the feminine and masculine, that's a moment, that's what we're saying here, what I'm saying here, it doesn't depend on the outer world. Of course, there are extreme cases of, yes, the outer world forces things, but generally it's coming from us. When we talk about leadership, there are 3 roads. It's or you go the assertive, compassionate, or you go in dominance or dependence. So when we go into dependence, as I mentioned earlier, is you look for an environment, people, manager who will recognize and say, hey, well done. And usually when you work on your own, it's not always simple. And if they don't, you fall in a victim. They didn't recognize me and so on. And you search for a protector and you go into blame. And that's false innocence, as we say. The reverse going in dominance and not being vulnerable, usually you start screaming or pointing fingers or being rough sometimes. Usually there are things that we need to deal internally that we're hiding away. So avoiding vulnerability causes us to lose deep connection with others. So in both cases, there's no bad or wrong. Again, it's about when we're under pressure and we're dealing with trauma and crisis, there's always an intelligent way of dealing with it. But the important thing when we're passing through it, to remember how do I want to pass through it? What am I aware of? And ideally, the more we grow with compassion to ourselves and have the courage to be vulnerable, aligned with vision and value, this is where the balance happens. This is where synchronicity happens, like, wow, I was thinking of this and I met this person and this happened, and it's kind of life is happening. For me, when it comes to union, it's what helped me on the journey towards it is letting go my expectation from the male figures in my life to be masculine 100%. That's important for me. And the other thing is embracing my feminine with more love and really not, again, idealistic perfectionism, but in simple moments, in daily practices with my son, friends, family, where we can co-create new colors and fresh canvases. And before closing that loop, I just want to stress it's an ongoing journey. It's not like a linear journey. It's kind of going deeper every year, every day, as long as we're conscious of it. And by the way, these stages, we can remove and switch them around. It's not like a rigid. Today, as I was reflecting on my journey before we spoke, for me, it felt like a journey from striving to thriving. Sometimes we think we need to struggle in life to get there. It doesn't have to be. So how do you reverse your perspective of life? Leading it authentically as much we're working on our awareness. I like to call it's a dance. It's an infinite dance that never ends between the feminine and masculine. So yeah, these are generally on my sharing of what Murdoch calls the heroine journey. Thank you for listening in. but it was a way for me to kind of highlight for you the stages through my personal experience. From that moment, I want to give you the opportunity, after having listened in, I'd like to offer you space to reflect on your journey, your heroine journey of your life, how it will happen. So I will guide you through questions that you will answer to yourself in silence. So I'll be asking a question. You see it on the screen. I'll copy it in the chat. You'll have around a minute to answer it. Again, write whatever comes to your mind. There's no right or wrong. And then after the sixth question, I might ask you kind of what are you noticing about the reflection? Ready? Yes? Great. So the first question that we'll share on the screen is, after having listened in about the heroine journey, what do you perceive as your feminine and masculine traits? And here I want to remind you, here it could be values, behaviors, personality traits that we might have. So what do you perceive as your feminine and masculine trait? We'll take a minute in silence, and then I'll give you a second question. Great. Now, the second question. At what moment in your life did you separate from your feminine? As I shared, we shift from the masculine to feminine. And here, going into the go-getter, competitive, rational. At what point? What happened in that moment? What do you remember? Again, write anything that comes to your mind. Great. Again, in silence with yourself, writing anything that comes to your mind. So after the third question, after achieving success, how did your masculine traits fail you? So after achieving success, the masculine trait probably is not anymore helping you to succeed or not making you happy. So how did it happen? Just write anything that comes to your mind. Could be a feeling, a moment, a word, anything. Great. And it's okay if it's not complete, you can come back to the questions and come back to them, reflect. The next question is, what do you need to let go of today? So from your feminine, from your masculine traits, could be some relationships, some behaviors that are not working anymore, some thoughts that are limiting, some limiting beliefs, emotions, or even spaces you're in. What do you need to let go of on your journey as leaders of your life? Great. So the next question is learning from the past. What do you want to bring forward with you from both the masculine and the feminine? And here it's like taking a stone, you're polishing it. What do you keep? What traits served you, would serve you to become who you want to be, aligned with your value, purpose, and essence? The last question. After reflecting on your heroine journey, what is one commitment that you are willing to take today? It could be two things. It could be something really big, like moving a new country or ending a relationship or job, but it could be as simple, but yet very important, such as agreeing to, say, committing to breathe three times every morning, every evening, and remembering what you're grateful for. Or it could be committing to a yoga or salsa class every week. So what is one thing that you're willing to put energy and commitment today for yourself? Beautiful. Great. So I hope you had some thoughts and reflection and ideas that are coming up. I would love to hear from you, of course, who would like to share with us kind of what insights did you receive from these reflections, from what you heard till now. You can unmute or write in the chat as you wish. So when you think of the union between the shifting from the feminine to the masculine, then coming to union as leaders of your life, what insights do you get for yourself?
For me, I realized that when I was in consulting in that go, high pressure environment, it was like my masculine overpowered, because that was what was rewarded. It overpowered my ability to just like sit still and be. And so I had a lot of anxiety that was kind of buzzing around in me. And that turned into I became hyper productive and was doing even more stuff. So just continuing to feed that doing like masculine side of things. And as I did that, I was feeling more and more disconnected from myself until I eventually, like I said, had a medical crisis that forced me to stop. And then I was able to get more in balance once I kind of had like a shock to the system. but yeah, for me, it was like overpowering and then continuing even more.
Thank you, Sarah. And what you're sharing is important. So you had to go through that huge alarm to say enough. And it's interesting. So from that moment to think of, what do I need? Not to fall again, because we can go back to old pattern. What do I need to do? Be more aware, intention every day. Mm-hmm. And not to again fall in my old pattern, what I think used to be serving me. So thank you for sharing openly on that. It's important. I see Gabriella also noticing the need to start paying more attention, yes, to my inner voice. Sometimes we don't create space for it. I mean, for me, meditation helps. Sometimes a walk in nature, or to be honest, in even very, very intense time, just pausing for a couple of minutes, looking at the window. If it's quite intense, if you have to be, right? But if not, intentionally setting in your schedule, like moments, this is a time where close the laptop, I leave and just create nothing, stillness, slowness in everything we do. That's why the breathing, when Sarah started, is like, the breathing completely shifts. If we take just 3 intentional long breaths, makes a big difference. So it's important to keep that connection with your inner voice. Beautiful. If you have any other ideas or reflection insights you would like to share, please do. Thank you, Patrick. I need to focus more on myself, even though this might hurt people around me, and stop worrying about proving myself to others. Beautiful. Yes, and this is what, Patrick, what you're saying here also reflects on what we say. It's about authentic leadership. And usually what we tend to separate, I should be assertive and hard, or compassion. These are 2 different things. That could be both. It doesn't have to be this or that. We can be authentic, compassionate leaders. And it starts by listening into ourselves and being compassionate and assertive with ourselves and our boundary. I used to put blocks on my calendar, so I keep space. Yes, I still do this, by the way, as a reminder with alarms. It's like, enough. Beautiful. Great. I'm just conscious of time because I want to also give Sarah the time to share with you amazing news. If you have other insights from the session, please don't hesitate to add. What I would like also to say is thank you a lot for Kate for your support, and Sarah for this super opportunity to share it with together. I really wish everyone a happy drumming internal journey, and please feel free to stay connected. I really hope maybe we'll see some soon in Mallorca, and I want to hand it over for Sarah to share amazing news coming ahead for Impactury.
Thank you. Well, I hope you all got a lot of benefit from the session and the reflection. So if you're feeling kind of curious about or pulled to explore these topics further. I mean, we covered a lot of different things, and, you know, this takes a lot to really, you know, we tried to add as much value as possible in this session, but it really takes, you know, time more than, you know, the hour that we have today. So this is a truly life-changing opportunity for you to join us in Mallorca this June. You know, Nadine had mentioned on the journey, it's really important not feeling isolated, and so finding support. And this retreat is a safe space with other women and coaches who will support you. And early bird for it ends on April 19th. So if you schedule a coffee chat, you can go to impactury.com to do that. If you schedule a coffee chat today to meet by next week, then you'll get a complimentary room upgrade when you book the retreat. And just an overview of the experience. So it'll include rest and relaxation. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? So there's rest and relaxation, and we will focus also on self-discovery and personal transformation. This is really the root of the entire experience. You'll be in incredible Mallorca, which all the photos that were in this presentation are all from Mallorca. So kind of giving a little taste of what you can expect. You'll also be able to connect with other inspiring women who are on this journey, have those shared values. And after, you'll also have executive coaching to support the integration of the changes that you make during the retreat. And then we're going to be staying in this absolutely incredible 14th century monastery that was converted into a space for retreats. It's surrounded by these like hundreds of year old olive orchards. It's right on the Mediterranean, up in the Tramontana mountain range. Like, this place is just pure magic. It's just, when you get there, I don't know, you just have this sense of peace. There's birds chirping. I was just there a few days ago, and it is absolutely incredible. And then if you can go to the next slide, Kate. We'll also have, we'll have a private chef, you'll have the coaching, you'll have spa services, and we're also going to do a private sailboat charter at sunset to kind of celebrate everything. And then we'll have different services that are going to support your personal transformation journey. So I hope that you can join us in Mallorca this June 7th through 11th. So you can be this girl laying at this amazing pool. I mean, the photos don't even do this place justice. It is just, I'm so excited. But yeah, like I mentioned, early bird registration ends the 19th, and then registration closes the end of this month on the 30th. So if you want to learn more, you can go to impactury.com. And yeah, I hope that you found this helpful. I hope you stay connected. Here is my contact and the website, like I mentioned. And you can also, if you want to connect with Nadine, here's her information on LinkedIn, and she also has a podcast out if you want to hear more of her story. You can search I Am Not a Victim on Apple or Spotify. So yeah, thank you. We'll hang around for a few more minutes if you have any questions, but thanks again so much for your time. And also, I just want to say that, you know, if these questions and reflections, you know, things might come up for you later. So I just encourage you to be gentle and compassionate with yourself. Just be curious about what those things are. So thanks again.
Thank you.